Thanks as ever to the fantastic ARN News Centre team, keeping us updated on everything going on and literally working around the clock. So shout out to those guys. We will have another report just after past, but you can check out the website and the app in the meantime.
This is Eye on Education on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Sponsored by Repton School Al Barsha. Exemplary British education for ages 3 to 18, where ambition is nurtured and potential is unlocked.
We're talking about what you're talking about, which is, of course, distance learning, from classrooms to screens. But this time, families are asking the harder questions. You know, as it is continuing right now, we're wondering not just how it works, but how well it works or could work. How can we keep our kids motivated? Are they really learning? And how do schools balance structure with the emotional reality of what us families are going through right now? Now, for school groups like Cognita, with this international network of thousands of students, it's not just about switching on the Zoom, it is about maintaining the standards, the connection and the confidence in these uncertain times. And joining us is Managing Director. Glen Radojkovich is with us today from Cognita UAE. Before we talk about the realities of distance learning for parents, students and the teachers, Glen, I wanted to check in with you. How have the last few weeks been from your seat as an education leader?
Yeah, look, it's been a challenging time for us, but it's been a challenging time for everyone. We recognise for parents, for teachers, everyone is pulling together for the best interests of the students, but we're doing the best we can, and I think we're getting there.
And then when you realised that this shift was happening, what did you start to immediately prioritise? What did you think, OK, this is going to be our goal, whether this is going to be 2 weeks, 2 months or until the end of the year?
Well, it's about continuity and provision for us and making sure that our students are enjoying their learning and progressing. So we're quite fortunate, as you mentioned, to have close to 100 schools globally, and we very quickly rallied around when the KHDA brought the spring break forward to allow us time to plan, and we thank them for that. We quickly rallied around to build on what we call the continuity and learning framework within Cognita and implement that for the students. And I think it's been well received by our parents and well received by our teachers. But I think we all recognise it's not ideal. You know, we wouldn't choose to be in this circumstance if we had the option. Our parents, our students, and our teachers within Cognita haven't chosen to attend online schools, although they exist. But we're doing our best to put in place a strong program for them, and I think that is coming together nicely.
I had a bit of a moment yesterday. I dropped our youngest off for a kind of a distance learning play date quite close to the school, and it was so odd to drive past it and go, I used to curse the traffic at this U-turn, and now I'd really would love that under the right circumstances. And I think, you know, we're going to talk about teacher wellbeing as well, but as you know, as we've touched on numerous times over the last few weeks, every teacher I know is in it for the kids. You know, they want to be there. They want to be picking up on those physical cues of having a quiet word, the eye contact, the, you know, genuine human connection. And we are limited by what we can do through the screens, but it sounds like you guys are actually going above and beyond just logging in at home, which we will touch on as well, Glen. I wanted to ask, with your years in education, what do you think a good enough online school day looks like versus one that's kind of ticking the boxes? Because I think for many, we're all starting to get a bit weary.
Yeah, look, it's challenging, and it progresses obviously as we go through the different year levels. So with the earlier younger learners, it's not about a lot of screen time. It's about a balance of screen time, a balance of connection, opportunity to engage, etc. And as we move through the different stages, we increase the amount of screen time, but balance that with asynchronous activities. We balance it with independent activities, etc. Through to our senior learners who are more able to spend longer periods of time on screen, and therefore have a greater amount of screen time. So it's very different in every circumstance. I know for families, it's a really tough ask. You know, I've got a young daughter myself, and she'll often interrupt meetings that I'm on and jump on my lap or come and ask me for support with an activity. It's difficult for all parents, and it's a struggle.
Gosh, I left with my 9-year-old wrangling the dog onto her lap and shoving it towards the camera on her iPad to show her pals, and then she piped up to the teacher, I think I understand this now. Can I leave the Zoom and just get on with it? And I was like, oh, God. Oh, my goodness. But I think you touched on it there, is this idea of still enjoying learning, because I think for a lot of parents, myself included, during COVID, my big learning was I don't want this to ruin my relationship with my child. I don't want every day to dissolve in tears, theirs and mine, because we're spinning out over a seesaw task. It is about kind of keeping momentum and keeping academic standards, but also being realistic and kind of keeping the sanity as well. I do want to give a shout out, and I'm not going to say which school it is, but it is a Cognita school that my girls go to, who went above and beyond at the weekend. And we had a knock on the door Sunday morning, and the head of year 6 came through with goodie bags with water bottles, footballs, a stuffed toy of the school mascot. And she sat down with my daughter, who's in year 6. And so this, it's her last year at the school before she goes to secondary. And she just said, I know this isn't what we'd hoped for year 6. We've got the school production we've been looking forward to. There's graduation. We're working really hard behind the scenes to try and plan some special things for the leavers. And she sat down with us for about half an hour and just talked my daughter through, how is it all going? How are you feeling? But, I know it's unsettling, but we're all here, and what do you need? And I almost cried, to be completely honest.
Beautiful. Look, it's so lovely, honestly, so lovely to hear. And there's so much that the team is trying to do for exactly that reason, to keep a positive connection with the school, to keep people feeling great about it. As you mentioned before, educators in general, and this isn't just a Cognita thing, this is across the groups that I've worked in within the UAE, and educators around the world. Generally speaking, they love kids and they love celebrating their success. So these times are difficult for them as they're not with them and don't have the opportunity to connect. I was speaking to a principal this morning at one of our schools who did exactly what you were talking about. He was there for a home visit, and he said it was the best day he's had in weeks. We've got groups that are operating in cafes, connecting with parents from all of our schools, arranging opportunities to get together, because that's what we're missing. We're missing the kids, and they're missing their teachers, and it's just lovely when you get a chance to see that back in action again.
It was like having a celebrity at the house. I got a bit starstruck seeing it, to be completely honest. We've also, of course, got families who are abroad. Glenn, tell us a little bit about that, about what, attendance or participation or flexibility in learning needs to be right now.
What we've tried to do in that instance is create a hybrid model. We've tried to be flexible for our teachers and flexible for our families where we can. Teachers, of course, if they have to get up for a lesson at whatever time, irrespective of the time zone they're in, they're doing that, and we're trying to support them with that. Equally, for parents who are in that circumstance, we're allowing parents to be flexible and to tune into the learning where they can on their asynchronous activities, and trying to upload videos of engagements that they may have missed out on, just to balance things for people. This is a crisis. This is a difficult situation. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be ideal. And I think if we can be flexible just a little bit and help our students and parents out and help our teachers out a bit, we'll all get through it together.
I do want to talk about teachers next, but before we get to that, you do have that advantage of a global network. What have you been able to learn or borrow from other Cognita schools around the world, whether it's lessons that have come through from COVID or in terms of that agility of having students literally everywhere?
Yeah, I think one of the big pluses is that our education team, and when I talk about our education team, above the layers of schools, we have a really strong and supportive education support structure within Cognita globally. We have a team here that pushes into schools and supports, but we also have the ability of drawing on each of the regions and each of the continents globally. And so we did require their support, quite honestly, to kick off with, in order to ramp up as quickly as we needed to, and to make sure the provision was as strong as we could make it. And they were very good at doing so. Equally, as you would know, we're connected with a number of schools globally. A good example being Repton. We've got live lessons happening with Repton teachers teaching students here in the UAE, just to provide something different, to try and add on additional opportunities of excitement and engagement as they connect with students from other schools. Similar sorts of things happening with RGS and some of the other schools that we have within the group, to add that extra layer. And I think it's really been a benefit and something we're going to keep doing post post this crisis, which we hope will end soon.
Let's take a positive from it. Absolutely. Right. Well, we're going to keep Glen with us this afternoon. Glen Radojkovich is the Managing Director of Cognita UAE. I do want to talk about teacher wellbeing. And we touched on it there, this idea of enrichment, sport, creativity, social development. How can you protect those elements? And even some of their real-world projects with massive organisations. I think NASA is obviously top of mind for a lot of us right now. So what's the thinking behind that?
Dubai Eye 103.8 traffic.
Joining us in studio, Jen Crichton at 3:15. It's been pretty quiet on the roads, Jen. What's the latest this hour?
It still is, to be honest with you. Really not seeing too much at all. That congestion that we've been seeing all week through Al Quoz, where the roadworks are on First Al Khail Street. Otherwise, it's all looking pretty green as you head north through Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Once we get north of the creek and north of Dubai Airport, there's a bit of congestion, sort of patchy, slow moving from the airport up into Sharjah's industrial area on the 311. And on the E11, it's looking fairly slow around sort of National Paints area, Corniche area of Sharjah. Eases up once you get around the Bushagara area. Really not much else that I can see on the map worth reporting. If you do see anything I've missed, though, you can let us know on 4001.
Thank you, Jen.
This is Dubai Eye 103.8.
Just a quick look ahead to tomorrow. I mean, we're talking food, of course, it's Friday. But before that, you've got a brand new starting up with Virtue Zone. So that's tomorrow, 10 a.m, right after the business breakfast. So Tom Urquhart and the Virtue Zone team sitting down, as he does every week, with Dubai's business owners, but also an awful lot of global experts as well, to share their wins, their perceived failures, what they've learned along the way. And I know business resilience is a really hot topic right now. So if you are a small business, a solopreneur, don't miss tomorrow. That's 10 a.m, starting it with Virtue Zone right here.
More coming up next on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Your home of news, business.
And the conversation is all about education. At this hour, after 5:30, we're going to be speaking to Matthew Whitaker, the assistant head teacher at Sixth Form Repton Dubai. Yes, of course, we have seen exam cancellations over the last couple of weeks. IB, IGCSE, A-levels. So how do you keep this particular group motivated when the very thing they've been working towards has been taken away? We're going to be getting some reassurances from the school side in about 10 minutes.
This is Eye on Education on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Sponsored by Repton School Al Barsha. Exemplary British education for ages 3 to 18, where ambition is nurtured and potential is unlocked.
Joining us live is Glen Radojkovich, who is the Managing Director of Cognita UAE, overseeing schools around the region and helping shape how thousands of students continue their education during this period. It's not just about keeping lessons going, it's about keeping kids engaged and connected and supported. And yeah, we've been talking about families abroad, many working parents juggling their own commitments and home learning, and teachers navigating yet another shift in delivery. It's testing education systems in a very real way, but it's also revealing what works, what doesn't work, and what really matters right now. Glen, let's talk about the teachers. I know you can't speak for every educator in the group, but overall, how they're coping and what kind of support have you put in place to really help them out at this time?
Yeah, look, it's I think it's different depending on their circumstance. We go through a phase and have been going through a phase of monitoring them very closely. We've been surveying them to see what we can do to support any small gestures that we can offer, even if that's sending a comfortable chair for them to work at home, or to check in with a staff member or a senior leader. But the feedback that we're getting very much is that the vast majority of them are doing well. There's a small percentage, and again, it tends to increase if they're on their own, if they don't have support, or if they're struggling with managing their own family circumstances and children's online learning concurrently. So depending on the situation, there's added pressures, but all of them are grouping together really well, and we're doing all we can to support them at the moment during a really challenging time for them.
Can we talk about enrichment for the kids? Because that's the big concern I'm hearing from a lot of my friends, is that the snack requests, their usual routine has gone out the window. And I think a lot of parents are perhaps a bit worried that uniform might not fit if they get to put it on again for term 3. So when we're thinking about sport and social development, what are you doing at Cognita to kind of protect those elements? Because, trying to do PE via Zoom is near impossible, even with the most inspirational teacher.
Yeah, it's absolutely not ideal. I mean, we've been working really closely and following the regulatory guidelines from KHDA, and I have to say a shout out to the KHDA. They've been doing everything they can to support us as school leaders and group leaders to provide the education we're delivering at the moment for the kids and to do it in the safest way possible. Equally, the Ministry of Education have been brilliant in terms of making the right decision for children and making sure that they're kept safe. Around those sort of boundaries, we've been able to work with a significant number of different opportunities for families. As you know, the academies are still running, and there's opportunities for sports provision outside of school. So as long as they're not on the school facility and they're being run by an independent body, then they're able to proceed. So we've still been able to offer the football, the netball and running and those types of activities for students that want to partake in a different setting, in a different way. And then within the school, there's a number of enrichment activities, from coding to environmental clubs to activities where we have worked with parents, for parents to take students to places like Bounce, connect with their friends and do some physical activity there. There's a range of different things that people are doing as they think outside the squares, that leaders are bringing different things to the table. We're getting those okayed and making sure that we can press ahead with them.
You've also partnered with Power Club. Tell us a little bit about that, some real world projects with some massive organisations, Glenn.
Yeah, we're really fortunate in that regard. Power Club is a group that we've been in conversation with for some time, and it just fell on our laps as the right opportunity to launch. We weren't quite ready, but we advanced things. And really, what they do is provide an opportunity to work with industry experts. And so we're working, as you say, with those groups from NASA and Tesla and a range of others, EA Games, etc. And we're providing opportunities for students to engage in what we would call industry experience. To do something that's relatively exciting. So if we take, for example, the Tesla challenge that we're offering for some of our students at the moment, where they're engaging in design and engineering challenge that they will be able to get judged on, get feedback on, and understand the components that are required to, in this case, design a buggy for a school setting. But there's a range of different challenges, and they're getting that real feedback from people who know what they're talking about in the industry, and hopefully making it a little bit more exciting and to stay engaged online.
I think it is about creating some kind of magic in the mundane, isn't it? And that might be someone who's got a really cool job, or, as you say, doing a project that's outside of the curriculum, and keeping that positive association with learning. Because that, to me, when we think about that kind of triangle of student, parent and teacher, we are on the same team. And what's been really upsetting, to be honest, is kind of a lot of negativity over the last few weeks, and perhaps a lack of compassion that so many schools are doing the very best they can under the circumstances. And then what we see is examples like that, where actually this is an opportunity to create something that's actually very cool, to be taught by a teacher who might be out of the country, or to bring in big companies to offer something a little bit special. And in the weirdest way, I guess, make good memories during a really difficult time. And I think it's too soon to say this, but when we kind of reflect, I do hope we perhaps appreciate the growth mindset around it, and perhaps that our kids learnt more than just what was on Seesaw was on the curriculum. They actually learnt a lot about themselves and how they learn, about their grit, about their own, learning styles. And do experiences like this, in your mind, actually change students and even how they see their future?
I think it is really important that we help them frame it in the right way. As adults and as leaders, we have a responsibility in that. Our teachers are certainly doing that as well. So how we approach this and how we approach it post the event will be really important. I was just in a board meeting earlier this morning where we were talking about exactly that. When this concludes, what are the wellbeing measures that we can do? What's the research that we can draw on to ensure that our students come out of this with the most positive way possible? How do we look back and change some of the screen time effects and impacts that we've seen? What are the things that we can do to best support them post the situation? But I think you're right, Helen, when you come out of these circumstances, hopefully we'll be able to look back with an element of pride in what we've achieved and what we've been able to come through collectively. And certainly, as long as we can go back, and it doesn't last too long, and we can plug the educational gaps that may have been missed and dial up the EQ opportunities that perhaps were missing, I think we'll come out of it stronger.
I agree. We are going to touch on this next with Mr. Whitaker. But I wanted to ask you about exams. Obviously we've had a lot of change there, exam cancellation, university pathways, and a lot of families worried about falling behind. What are you saying to the families who are worried and kind of impacted the most by those announcements, Glenn?
Yeah, look, it's a tough time. Generally speaking, when we go into a situation of non-exams, which happen relatively regularly, actually, interestingly, around the globe in different countries each year for the large exam boards, when we do face them, there are measures in place that are solid and sound. If we look at COVID as an example, our students that went through that situation at that time were able to get good places at universities, were able to move on and do well. They're often well supported when it comes to the internal assessments that need to happen in order for them to be best placed. And so I think whilst it's not ideal, and whilst for certain students there will be a frustration if their internal work hasn't been where it needed to be, the vast majority of them will move through and hopefully receive solid grades, enable them to move on to the appropriate universities. I mean, it's not an ideal situation, obviously, but the exam boards are doing everything they can, and schools will do everything that they can to support. One of the things that we've done recently to try and help those students who perhaps are moving on is teamed up with universities. So whilst they won't have the exams, we're offering lectures from a range of different universities to our senior students at the moment over the next couple of weeks, and hopefully not any longer than that.
Hopefully,
but as long as they need to have it, we'll continue to offer them, right? And where they can get those experience from universities and what an exam lecture is like, and hopefully develop some skills they wouldn't have otherwise had, which will enrich them as they move through to be a year one student at a university.
Lastly, Glenn, on a personal level, what has the last month or so kind of taught you about education or the education system that, I don't know, maybe you hadn't fully appreciated before?
Look, I think it continues to teach you every time we go through a situation like this, both what the education system is like and the country is like that you're living in. I'm extremely proud to live within the UAE. I think the way the UAE responded during COVID, during the floods, during the financial crisis prior to that, and now in this situation has been absolutely remarkable. I think educators pivot very quickly in this country, and that's something that I'm particularly proud of as well. I think educators as a group, I want to give a big shout out to all the school leaders, all the teachers who are doing everything they can, and to parents. As a community, we get through these things when we support each other, and we'll get through this by doing just that.
It's funny, as I was thinking about that question, I was thinking it just comes back to people, doesn't it? It just comes back to making sure you're surrounded by great people with the best of intentions and being on the same team. So Glenn, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All the very best to the team at Cognita. We've been speaking to this managing director, and we're going to be talking, actually, we touched on it there, about exam cancellations, university pathways, and how else can schools support those senior students at this time. If you've got any questions, get in touch on 4001.
Good afternoon, I'm Andrew Hosey. The UAE